So yes, I'm Marc from FreeOurFeeds. So by training, I'm a computer scientist, but my day job is actually not FreeOurFeed, plainly. I run a non-profit which is called AI Forensics, and our mission is to hold big tech platforms accountable. So we study basically the enshittification of current platforms. So we conduct algorithmic audits on TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, all of those. And so this is also what has built my interest in kind of trying to build better alternatives. So this it's been for a few years now. Actually, it's funny because I just saw this morning Mihan from Mozilla, who is actually one of the first supporters of a project I started in 2021, which was called YouChoose. The point was to basically build an alternative recommender system adversarially for YouTube through a browser extension. And more recently, last year I was involved in a kind of regulatory effort to introduce the concept of algorithmic pluralism in French law, which is actually now being hopefully translated into law. They're working on it. And so this is kind of all these different efforts that led me to also be part of the project called FreeOurFeeds, with a group of here you go, a group of other, basically everyone is digital rights activists who also all have other day jobs. So it's a project that started a few months ago. That everyone was very excited to with this vision, which I think is shared with a lot of people here, to basically break free from billionaire control platforms and to try to build more equitable digital ecosystem. And so basically the project is built around three pillars. The first one is to try to contribute to building the AT infrastructure concretely. I'm going to go into each of these individually. Then we also want to support a public interest governance and regulation, and also seed an innovation ecosystem and the community around it. So I'll start with the infrastructure part. We obviously, infrastructure is power, and the goal is to try to. So FreeOurFeeds will have a foundation, which we're in the process of registering, which will be independent from corporate interests. And so the goal is for this foundation to operate part of the infrastructure. So we are going to start with a second relay, which would be based on European in the European Union for some various reasons, some of which I'll mention right after. And we're also considering to start a PDS service also as a second kind of brick. And and the second big pillar of the project is kind of the public interest governance and also kind of the regulation piece. In terms of, so the goal is, I think that's something that has been also mentioned yesterday. Right now, the governance of the AT protocol is could benefit from also being introduced or included in kind of more standard setting organization, and to make sure that it's kind of still continues to reflect, to be aligned with the public interest. And so that's a part of the effort we would like to support. And actually part of the custodian have been in touch with also the Blue Sky team on that. The part that I'm more kind of involved with is kind of to try to push for interoperability regulation. In Europe in particular, there has been like, there's something called the Brussels effect. I don't know if you're familiar with it. There's good and bad parts of it. There's also, for example, that's why you need to click the cookie banner. Okay, that's annoying, but that's also why you have some data portability right on certain platforms. That's also why you have a USB-C port on your iPhone or Mac. That's pretty cool. And there's also there has been a requirement introduced for messaging interoperability on messaging apps. So, for example, between Signal and WhatsApp, which should start anytime soon. So I think it can give us hope to basically take it to the next level and to also introduce this type of interoperability requirement in social media apps, which I think could be really where we can start thinking of a more systemic change that could impact the whole industry. And so there's going to be, in fact, a new kind of regulation that's currently being discussed called the Digital Fairnesses Act, which I think there is actually there's a couple of like really kind of more tech-savvy member of European Parliament who are trying to push for social media interoperability to be included in this. And so I think that's a very worthwhile kind of effort to try to support, because I believe it could have an impact to, the opportunity to impact the whole industry at a global scale. And so the third pillar is to try to also support a strong ecosystem around the protocol, such as the ones that we have here gathered today. So ideally, we're going to raise a lot of money, and we're going to be able to support a lot of projects. There's both in terms of social media bricks, but also other like web application beyond social apps built on AT. And so our roadmap is basically, we've only launched a few months ago, as I mentioned, with only people who are doing this on the side, but we have now raised 250K, mostly from crowdfunding actually, but also with support. We have some initial seed funds from like smaller seed funds, but we're quite advanced also with a bunch of other foundations, and we think we can have a realistic goal of raising 4 million by the end of the year. We're going to use that money to hire an executive director who's going to then try to support, continue to fundraise, and a policy lead, and also hire a first engineer to start building the relay, which we think we could have also up and running by the end of the year. That's definitely the objective. We're also talking with a European cloud provider who should be providing us with kind of the free infrastructure to do this, as well as a sysadmin. So that's we have made some good progress on this, but really what we're what I'm excited to be, why I'm excited to be here today is also to better understand from the perspective of those of you who know this protocol much better, what are the needs in terms of infrastructure expansion. If we're going to do the second relay, also are there specific kind of requirements that would make it more beneficial for the community? As I mentioned, I think one thing that's important is to make it in Europe, so that to give, I think, a sense of ownership and sovereignty also to European regulators on the protocol, because I think the more of this that there is, and the more of an ecosystem we manage to build also in the EU, the more there will be interest for regulators to actually promote this type of protocol and more systemic interoperability regulation. So that's the goal. There's actually going to be the Ahoy conference, also as mentioned, that's going to be in Europe next month. And so yeah, so it'd be great to have more of you there. And that's it. I kept it short.
Cool. Thank you so much, Marc. You should also mention that we have a discussion around FreeOurFeeds later today as well. And I'm really happy that you're here to talk about the different types of engagement that we need, right? It's not just a developer community that we're building, it's also how are we interfacing with the rest of society, civil society, and regulators and so forth. So really glad that you're here. Thank you so much.